Hello, Pong Stars, and welcome to the Rathole. I'm your host, Zack Eichten. We have a great show today, so let's get into it. First up, in NFL news, it was released Tuesday that players have until Thursday, August 6th, to choose to opt in or out for the upcoming NFL season due to the coronavirus. Any player who opts out and is in the league-determined high-risk pool will receive a $350,000 stipend for the season, with his contract paused. Players in the voluntary low-risk opt-out category will get $150,000 in the form of an advance on his contract. There are additional opportunities for after the deadline where players can opt out due to a variety of changing scenarios, including a changing family situation with the coronavirus, or if the player uncovers a high-risk condition after the Thursday deadline. An additional change to the league will allow for teams to activate practice squad players on Sunday, on game day, if it loses a player due to needing to quarantine due to the coronavirus. In previous years, that deadline to activate a practice squad player was Saturday before game day. Now let's hop on over to Pong Stars League News. In League News this week, we have a few updates. Number one is the release of new small prizes to take the place of the former Pick'em prizes. Just as a reminder, all of this will be online for you to view on the new Prizes and Rules tab on the website. Now, in last year, we had a set number of small prizes. There was $10 for the largest victory margin, most points in a week, highest bench points for the regular season, best quarterback performance in a single week, best running back performance in a single week, and best wide receiver performance in a single week, with an additional $15 set aside for highest bench points in the regular season, and that's a season-long score. This year, we're going to be adding $50 towards these small prizes. Number one, best tight end performance in a single week for another $10. Best defense performance in a single week for $5, and best kicker performance in a single week for an additional $5. On top of all that, we had some money left over, so we are going to increase of $10 towards the largest victory margin, most points in a single week, and most points against, bringing those up to 20, 20, and 25 respectively. These changes, again, posted on the Pong Stars website for easy reference, so you know those targets you have to hit during the season. The second league news update is regarding the database. The database has been updated with a few key statistics and is live on the Pong Stars website now. First up, the previous season's starting lineups have all been inputted onto each team's 2019 page. Additionally, you can see broken down the point share per position each team has on that same page. These pages also include the relevant statistics on each team ranking, matchup data, scores, and average scores in the aggregate, as well as per opponent. It's a really great tool, and I hope you take a look at it. For some relevant league-wide rankings, check out the Rankings tab or the 2019 League Summary tab to see how your team stacks up against your opponents. In the future, I will also be adding some additional graphs based on the points per position data that just got inputted. Unfortunately, I was not able to go back in time and get data from ESPN. That league doesn't exist anymore since we didn't reactivate it. But that's all right, because I should probably stick to using data from the keeper era anyways. We're hoping to keep that updated, and I'll release an update on that every couple months or so. Also, for your convenience, I added a table of contents on the very first page on the database. Click the hyperlinks on whatever information you want to see, and it'll zip you right over to where you need to be on that database. Of course, the database is where I pull all of my fun facts, so take a look around during your perusal. If you spot anything, shoot me a text about it. I love talking about league statistics. I put a lot of time into that database. I'd love to chat about it with you. And if you have some, who knows, maybe it'll end up on the show. In fact, let's hop over to the fun fact of the week right now. All right, so this fun fact of the week is a years-long one in the making. This league has been around in some form since 2015, which means there have been 5 seasons that have been played thus far. However, the profile of a champion is inscrutable. In 5 seasons, the champion has never had the exact same final record in regular season. That's right, 5 years, 5 different records. In 2015, I won the championship with an 8-5 regular season record. In 2016, Thomas won with a 9-4 regular season record. 2017, we hop over to Brennan's championship run with a 7-6 regular season record. Lucas won in 2018 with a 6-7 regular season record. And finally, last year, Noel won with a 10-3 regular season record. Let's see if we can continue that streak into the future and maybe get an 11-2 or even a 5-8 record as we go forward to who gets that championship belt this year. Belt? No. Trophy. That's what I meant. Trophy. This week, I also had an opportunity to sit down with team owner John Stevens for an interview. Let's head on over to that interview now. Let's get started. Let's hop into this here interview. So John, thank you for being first ever interviewee on the Rathole. I know last week in the update we had some stats from you, and I'm excited to get into your take on that later. But first of all, let's just hear from you. Give us an update into your life. Where you at? Where you working? What's going on? What's the typical day for the John Stevens?
The typical day right now is pretty much the same as it is for everybody. Just wake up, roll out of bed, take a shower maybe every other day, kind of depends, eat some food maybe, and then hop on the computer, work for about 4 hours as hard as I can to get all my shit done, and then watch Netflix on the clock. It's great. It's a good time. And then after, I just study for hours about the acquisitions I'm going to want to make during this upcoming season. So a lot of homework time. I've been spending my time doing some research as opposed to driving back and forth from work. So Corona has given me that.
A little bit of an edge.
Though, pretty normal life, man.
All right. Well, then let's hop over to fantasy. You brought it up right away, and I have some statistics to kind of throw at you here.
Gonna grill me.
A little bit here. So you're talking about all these acquisitions you're going to make this upcoming season. You are one of the most prolific movers and shakers in the league when it comes to acquisitions.
Yep.
Over 5 seasons, you've made 97 acquisitions, which is second in the league only to Brennan's 103. What drives that? What drives that sort of pickup mentality?
Well, I think ultimately with your bench players, you're looking for the highest upside. At least the approach that I'll take is my bench players, I'm not necessarily looking for a consistent guy who's going to put up 10 points a week or even less or more. I'm looking to catch lightning in a bottle, looking to catch those guys that are on a hot streak. So I like to ride the hot hand a lot with my flex player or with like my wide receiver 2 or running back 2, depending on the season, depending on who my kind of workhorses are. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I would say I've had mixed results. I've had mixed success in this league so far. So I can't say that it's the perfect formula. But for me, it keeps me involved, keeps me engaged in fantasy. I feel like without the acquisitions and free agency, I'm not sure I'd be as invested. I think that's kind of where I get the most thrill is beating someone to a punch, or like now that we've started our keeper league, having the dollar value and having to put out a certain number, not knowing what other people are going to want to bid on them. So I really enjoy that aspect of fantasy. So it's an enjoyment thing, but there's a little bit of strategy. I don't know. Hopefully it'll work better this year.
Well, you remind me, when we were discussing rules for the upcoming Keeper League, we were discussing the free agency acquisition budget. You were a fan of the fab dollars, right?
Yeah, I like the budget, and like you mentioned, I'm only behind Brennan in terms of like lifetime acquisitions. So I enjoy that aspect. I think it leaves. I think people are going to get better at it as the more years that we do. The more years that we do this league, people are going to get a better sense for like how valuable a player is in week 1 versus like week 15 or a later time in the season where you just really need a guy, that person might have been only worth $1 or $2 earlier in the season, but late season when everybody's injured and everybody's looking for that last guy to fill out the roster, that same person might be worth, $50. So
Right.
I definitely like the strategy involved with the budget, and hopefully, I mean, obviously, not everybody's going to be a fan of making moves during the season. People have strategies. A lot of people like to ride with their guys all the way through. But hopefully, we'll get some more people testing the free agency market this year.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that for me, especially the learning curve was a little high for me, was figuring out how valuable players are from week to week and in the free agency. And I think a lot of us ended up with a pretty high budget at the end of the year. So then we were able to put those high bids down on players that I, in my opinion, weren't necessarily worth as much money as people were throwing down. But because we just had all this surplus left over, why not use it?
Yeah, I think
I
experience is everything. Ultimately, it's
exactly.
a very young league, so I think people who have played in other leagues with budgets before kind of thrived. But it's really hard. Like if you just go ahead and Google how much a player is worth versus their first year budget, it's really hard to get a good answer because every league's so different in terms of like the setup of how many teams, what the budget is, PPR, non PPR. There's just so many variables. So a quick Google search doesn't really help you too much in that department.
Yeah, definitely didn't help me last year. That's for sure. Um, so you were one of the original Dirty Half Dozen, the original 6 in the league. How has been the transition for you as a team manager been going from 6, then to 8, and then to 10 with keepers? How's that transition been for you?
I've really liked it. I mean, this league has ultimately overtaken the other leagues that I've been a part of as kind of my primary league. Going into college, I had a group of high school buddies who we had like a 10 to 12 man league, depending on the year. And that was kind of always my big one. We put in like $50 or, back in high school, it was like $20 was a big deal. So that was kind of always my primary league. And now that I've been phased out of that league, I'm not really friends with those guys. So they just didn't invite me back anymore. It's nice to kind of have a more serious league in place that I can like, be invested in. Fantasy is fun, but it's only fun for me like if you have money on the line. Once you don't have money on the line or a significant amount of money, it's like you lose interest really quickly. So I think having this be the primary league, I really like seeing it go from 6 players because 6 players, I mean, it's a whole other ball game. It's really is a completely different fantasy sport just because you have such higher levels of talent. I think if we continued with 6 teams, we probably would have wanted to do like a best ball format or have more players, like have 2 quarterbacks or something like
Right.
that. But now that we've gotten to 10 teams, I think we're in a good spot. I mean, personally for me, I think in the past leagues that I've done, I've enjoyed 10 teams the most. 12 is just you're scraping the bottom of the barrel a little too often with 12 teams. So I like 10. I think 10's a good number.
Well, that's great to hear. I know that when we first started out, we had no money on the line because we had, NCAA athlete Sam Olson that couldn't
Yep.
participate in paid fantasy football. So we had to deal with that for a while. But I'm really happy with where the league has landed so far as well. Um, what has been your favorite memory of the fantasy football league? Any adjacent memory counts. Doesn't have to be just a matchup.
Um, I I don't know. Nothing has really stuck out to me in terms of the actual fantasy play itself. I think the things that I've enjoyed the most so far have been things like surrounding fantasy. So like last year we went up to your cabin and we did like the votes on the rule changes and stuff. That was a lot of fun. I think in the future, in a post-corona world, it'll be really nice to have like an actual draft weekend and be able to like go somewhere where we can all be together and hang out and then have a lot of fun like during the draft. I think for me in the past, my past leagues, that was kind of always the most fun thing. Like in the one year we went to like B-dubs to do our draft, and then one year we did it in person, all with the like placards and shit, which was just a nightmare. But it was a fun experience to have and to know that it's not worth the extra money for everybody to chip in to get the draft kit. But yeah, I think it's a really young really young league, so I think we got a lot of memories to create. I, got, I would say in recent memories, like the most related to fantasy, I think the run I went on just last year to make the postseason was pretty epic. Winning my 3 last games and coming from behind to catch you to make it into the playoffs. That felt good, especially in like the first year. And I know I talk a lot of trash. Like I was calling my team the best straight out of the draft, and that was just clearly not true based on the number of trades I had to make to just keep myself afloat during the middle part of that season. But yeah, it's been a blast so far. Hoping to win a championship in one of these years. That'll obviously be a good memory. So hopefully we'll get that soon.
Yeah, so over the years, yeah, let's talk about sort of your over the years statistics here. You've had some really good seasons, and then there's been some stinkers out there for you.
Mm-hmm.
In the first season back in 2015, you finished first place in the regular season with a 9-4 record. You ended up losing to a better team, more well positioned, all around, just fantastic squad in the Agents of Shield. But you ended up still having that nice 9-4 record. Since then, you finished the regular season in third place, fourth place, eighth place, and then sixth place last year. What changed from that first year moving forward, and how are you going to recapture that rookie season for you and get back to a real solid winning team?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to mindset. I just got to be dedicated. I can't like come up with any excuses blaming my schedule or blaming specific matchups or injuries. I just got to lock in. I think I got a really solid group of keepers. I'm not completely positive on who they all are yet, but I think ultimately going into the draft this year, I have a really solid core, which is nice. It's my first time playing in a keeper league, so it'll be nice to be able to like look forward to the draft knowing that I'm already going to have some solid players and not wondering like who any of my players are going to be. I think in the past few years where I haven't had that much success, my real struggle has been at the running back position. Um, I haven't traditionally had. You kind of touched on it with Le'Veon Bell, but I traditionally haven't had like a ton of success with my running backs. I think a lot of that comes from my previous league that I played in. It wasn't a PPR at all. It was just a straight up league. Coming into a
Gotcha.
0.5 PPR, I don't think up to this point I've really valued the receptions as much as I should. So definitely something I'm looking forward to. And I think my other big thing that I'm looking for is just more consistent play on my workhorses. Like I mentioned before, like with the bench players, I'm really trying to catch like the hot players. But in terms of my workhorses, I really want to actually get some guys in there that are more consistent because over the course of the season, I often have players that'll finish out like the top 5, top 10 in their position, but they have a lot of like really slow weeks and a lot of big weeks. So I would rather have a player, like if we're talking about a running back, I'd rather have a player that consistently puts up, 18 to 20 points every week than one that puts up 40 one week and then 5 the next week. So I think in a PPR league, a lot of that comes from the receptions and just touches. So I got to get more guys that have a higher snap percentage of being on the field. Try to get some running backs that aren't necessarily in a 2-back system, which is hard to find these days. But I think, like I mentioned, I got a solid core. So I'm looking, obviously the draft's going to be big, but I feel like I'm in a good position going into this season. So
Yeah, I would agree that you're in a really good position for this season. I mean, I'm looking over here at your running back core for potential keepers. I mean, you got Aaron Jones, you got Nick Chubb, you have Melvin Gordon. Who else? Who else you got on the squad here?
we got Devontae
You got
Adams, who
Devontae
will definitely be
Adams.
a keeper.
Oh, I'm shocked that you're going to keep a Packer.
Yeah.
Truly,
Well, that's
but
what I'm saying
I
though,
think
because
you
like
got a lot.
I got Devontae Adams. He's probably fantasy wise the last 3 seasons, apart from his injury this last season, has been one of the best guys on the field, top 5 wide receiver, undisputed. And then Aaron Jones, who's an up and coming running back, doing good things for the Packers. Nick Chubb is really exciting to me. I think he's got great potential as Baker Mayfield continues to develop. Hopefully, Kareem Hunt tears his ACL or gets hit by a bus. That would really help out my squad. I might have to pick him up late in the draft if he's still available. If Zack doesn't keep him, just to have that handcuff, because I think obviously he can still do some damage, even given that he's getting up there in age a little bit.
I'll trade him to you right now. Second round pick. Straight up.
No, I don't think I'm going to trade for him. I'll just take him a little later on. And then,
fair enough.
Yeah, I think my biggest question mark going into the season is quarterback. I got Aaron Rodgers, who obviously in previous seasons has been dominant, seems to be on a bit of a decline these days. So not looking like a keeper there. Cam Newton's stock is rising really quickly. Saw another nice photo of him with Julian Edelman in the Patriots wide receiver core, looking good, looking fit. So I think he's going to be out on a mission this season to prove himself. So he's really sneaking into the back of my mind as being a potential keeper, especially like in a league now today where guys like Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, guys that have the ability to run and get running touchdowns, that's proved huge for fantasy. Cam Newton even did that 5 years ago during his, I don't know if it's 5 years ago in his MVP season, but in his MVP season, obviously he did a lot of damage on the ground running it with his own legs and putting it in the end zone. So that's probably my biggest question mark still going into this season. Nobody's ever off the trading block for me. I'm always looking to make a move. So I'm not like Noel or Lucas who are just unwilling to trade their top players. You know, if I had a guy like Christian McCaffrey, he'd always be ready to be traded. Something like Aaron Jones and a couple of picks, could do well. But I don't know. Noel's kind of selfish like that. So
kind of stingy for that one.
Yeah.
So you talk about everybody's on the block. Is there any players that have never been on the trading block for you? Who's your favorite player to have on the fantasy squad?
I honestly, I really can't put my finger on one guy that I've had in the past that has just been untradeable. I guess in the past I have had Tyreek Hill when he had a season similar to what Michael Thomas had last year. I think it was 2 years ago where Tyreek had 290 points throughout the whole season, just a massive season, was putting up consistent numbers, but also would occasionally go off. I think that's probably the closest I've ever been to having a guy that I just wouldn't trade. But other than that, even my guy that I'm biggest on this year on my squad is probably Nick Chubb. And even given that he's a really good player, I still see potential to trade him just because there's some things that I don't love about him. I don't love that he's in a two-back system with Kareem Hunt, who's going to take receptions from him. Baker Mayfield has a lot of weapons on the outside. Obviously, Freddie Kitchens was a huge hindrance to his performance last year just because he would take the ball out of his hands for absolutely no reason and start making Baker throw it 40 times a game. But hopefully with new coaching staff this year, they'll be a little more committed to the run. And basically, I'm looking for Chubb to be a little less script-based in terms of the game script. I'm hoping that he gets several touches throughout the game no matter what the score is. So ultimately, obviously, that's kind of the best case scenario for any player. But yeah, no, everybody's on the block. Always has been.
Well, I love to hear that. I'll send you a few trades later.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if everybody's on the block for you, Zach. You tend to send trades that aren't exactly two-sided.
Well, that's fun for me. That's not fun for you, but it's fun for me to have those out there.
Yeah, you're always out there for the meme.
No, I'm out there for the meme. There's a common saying in fantasy football that you can't win the league in your draft, but you can lose a league in your draft. Walk me through your drafting strategy, especially first year with the keeper league. How are you going to make sure that you don't lose the season in the draft?
Sure. Well, a couple thoughts on that. First thought being you could shrink that statement even. You can't win in this league and lose. I mean, we'll start there. We'll build from there. Applying it to the draft, still very true. You really can't win the league just by drafting. You would have to get extremely lucky to do that. Noel was pretty lucky in the past. But, yeah, you definitely can lose it. You can make a boneheaded move. I think the biggest thing for me, I'm not necessarily locked in on one strategy. It's just that you have to be committed to your strategy, or you have to adapt, and you have to choose what you're going to do going into the strategy or going into the draft. So if you commit before the draft and you say, okay, my strategy is going to be to prioritize running backs in the first round and then move on to wide receivers, take a quarterback late, you have to commit to that and stay with that. But if you're going into the draft thinking, okay, I'm just going to take the best player who's available, unless I really am needing something, you have to stick with that as well. You can't flip flop, go back and forth between strategies mid draft. I think that's where a lot of people get caught up, and then they're looking at their team and they're looking at their RB1 being Philip Lindsay and just asking where it went wrong. So I think ultimately, my drafting strategy, it really changes year by year. I just try to stay committed to it. I think going into this year, obviously being a keeper league, I'm going to have 5 guys. I'm feeling really good about my RB1 and RB2 spots. I feel really good about my top wide receiver. Second wide receiver and flex are a little more questionable. I'm going to need to pick up a tight end. So it's going to be a little bit of everything for me early on. And then, like I mentioned with my strategy in the past, late rounds, I'm probably going to be looking for guys that have a high upside. Maybe looking at some of those first few week matchups to try to pick guys that are going to be favorable right out of the gate and then trade them or drop them after their hot streak at the beginning. So we'll see. I don't love my spot. I think I'm like 5th or 6th, which is right smack dab in the middle. So I like usually being kind of on one end or another. I think most people do. Nobody really loves being right in the middle. So hope I'm gonna have to battle that a little bit, but it should be good.
Yeah, you are exactly 5th on the
Yeah.
draft board for this year. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about a statistic you might not enjoy me bringing up, but it's your overall win percentage.
Sure.
Your overall win percentage in the league is 45.6, which is the 3rd lowest in the league. That does include Tony's inaugural season, which was not a good percentage. So if we remove the 2 outliers of recent folks, you're 2nd lowest in the league, with only Sam lower than you. Give me your initial reaction to that, and then what's your plan to turn that around this season?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to hear. I think part of me thinks maybe I'm just overthinking it, putting too much work in. Fantasy's definitely got a little bit of a luck element. So at times I do feel like I overthink it a bit. I get caught up in the matchups, going between 1 or 2 guys, and you just I think again it kind of just goes back to what your goals are for the beginning of the season, like what your strategy is, and I think you kind of have to commit. Like if you're gonna consistently ride the hot hand for your flex position, like your whoever had the best, previous 2 weeks, I'm gonna ride that guy. You have to commit to that. You can't just in a random week be like, oh, the hot guy is a guy that I don't really love, so I'm not gonna put him in this week, and I'm just gonna go with this one. So you have to stay committed. I think that's the main thing. I need to stay committed to my strategy and not, teeter totter back and forth. I don't know. Third from the worst kind of sucks, but I feel like I always make noise. I'm not just fully out of it like Sam or Tony was last year. I'm always at least in the hunt, position that the Vikings have been in a lot over the mid 2000s. So
Basically,
get
since I
familiar
started
with it.
watching football.
Yeah, I love being in the hunt. I love being that team that nobody's talking about. Takes a lot of the pressure off my guys. I know that it's weighing heavy on their heads knowing that they're on my squad. So that does help. Embracing that kind of underdog mentality. I think maybe I need to dial it back with the shit talking and talking about how good my team is. Clearly it hasn't worked too well in the past, and maybe I'll just fully embrace the dark horse strategy this season and lay low and just subtly be 13-1 and go into the championship or something like that. We'll see.
Oh, very, very subtle 13
Yeah.
0 championship run there. All right, last question. And we're going to end every interview like this with a would you rather.
Mm.
Would you rather know the top rookie from the coming draft or
Okay.
the top point scorer of draftable players?
Mm, I think just the top player. I mean, a rookie would be nice, especially in a keeper league, but I think the chances are the top player overall scoring that's available is going to be a relatively young guy. It's not going to be like an old guy like AJ Green who you're going to take him and then you're not going to keep. I feel like ultimately it's going to be a guy who's under definitely under 10 years in the league, probably closer to under 5 years in the league. in terms of the pool of draftable guys. So yeah, I'd probably go with that. So if you want to tell me that, that's fine. I'll draft them. But.
No, I wish I knew. I think I would rather have the rookie looking at my squad. I think I need some capable and keepable players.
The rookie's definitely nice. I definitely got a few guys on my radar this year. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor coming out of Wisconsin, going to be running behind the best offensive line in the league. At Sam Olson, who thought they were not the best, and they actually are. He was chirping me about that, and he was wrong. So he's obviously gonna make some noise. Him and Marlon Mack are gonna be one of the better 1-2 punches in the league. So I'm excited about him. Hopefully, get the Wisconsin boy on my team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of Kansas City. I know he's making a lot of noise right now with a couple of the Chiefs guys moving on or not playing this season, sitting out. So he's obviously going to have a lot of value, I believe. I've heard that Tony and Sam have both said that if he's available, they'll be taking him with their first overall pick. So probably not a guy that's going to slip to me, but definitely looking at him. And then obviously there's a plethora of very good wide receivers coming out of college this year.
I think
and then Joe Burrow.
Yeah, this is one of the seasons that I've seen a lot of buzz for rookies in running back, wide receiver, and quarterback in a way I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, guys like Tua, who's going to be in a starting position right away, and then you got Joe Burrow, wide receivers, like I mentioned, just a ton of them, and then a few good running backs. So, yeah, it's definitely one of the deepest rookie classes fantasy-wise that I can think of in the past few years. In the past, I can't remember a rookie going within the first 4 rounds of our drafts in the past. I'd have to do some looking, but I really can't think of one that's gone very early. So obviously with the keeper league, we're going to get rookies going in the first round this year. But I think even if we weren't in the keeper league, guys like, JT or Clyde Edwards or, some of the wide receivers, Justin Jefferson or guys like that could have definitely gone in the top few rounds. So we'll see. I don't know. It's also hard because we don't know a lot about what they've been doing in the off season. And now that they're in camp, we'll at least start to hear if they're making good progress or if they're looking like they're going to be kind of a bench guy to start. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the season. So thank you for joining me here on the Rat Hole. Anything else you want to end with before we sign off?
Not really. Like I said, everybody's for sale on my team, looking for some draft picks. If you need a wide receiver, I got John Brown. I got that guy on San Francisco. Can't think of his name. He's great, obviously, because I can't think of his name.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
We got Emmanuel Sanders traded down to
Deebo Samuel.
Traded down to New Orleans. Deebo Samuel.
A
lot of good guys. A lot of good guys that probably won't be keepers for me. I'll definitely be looking to get some draft picks out of guys with weaker teams like Sam and Tony. Thomas and Lucas don't have the best teams. Drew's kind of garbage too, but yeah. So,
all right, I got one last bonus question for you. You keeping Antonio Brown?
No. No.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Antonio Brown will be on the draft board this season. Yes. Looking forward to Tony or Sam picking them up with their first round.
Yeah, that 8-week suspension definitely hurt. I think ultimately the play that I made late last season to take him for, I believe, $0, or it was definitely less than $5 when Josh dropped him. I think ultimately that was a good play just to take a chance. He's been the best wide receiver in the league over the past 5 years when he's been on the field. So definitely worth it to try to just keep him on the bench just by the chance that he might become sane again. But yeah, looks like he's still crazy. So sad. It's a sad day. And I really hope the Packers don't take him because I know a lot of Packers fans are thinking we should take him for some reason. So hopefully not. But yes, he'll be on the draft board this year. So feel free to take him. Anybody who's interested.
Alrighty, well, thanks for joining, John. We will hop back over now to our regularly scheduled program. Oh, boy. Whew. Quite the riveting interview with John. Join us next week where we'll have another one of your fellow team owners here on the Rat Hole for an interview with them as well. That's going to do it for the Rat Hole this week. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to vote. And these additionally, you can see relevant statistics on team rank. What the hell was that?